Okay, so I'm a little nervous, but we'll try to go through this and see how it goes. But I just first wanted to start off before I said anything. Just thank you all as a spiritual family. Thank you for all being here and supporting me and loving and caring for me. I don't think I would be standing up here today if it wasn't for finding such a great spiritual family here at A&F. So I just want to appreciate all of you. For those who don't know me, my name's Adam Nash. I'm married to my wife, Jamie, over there. She's a little overconfident in fantasy football, but that's okay. Last place in one league, but it is what it is. We just moved here recently to Dallas in July of this year. We were here before. We came earlier this year for one of my clinicals. I'm a physical therapist, but we came here earlier this year, and then we actually fully moved down here in July. So we got to fully know everybody and get to know everybody and kind of try to develop our identity down here in Dallas. I think it's a true blessing that we had the opportunity to be here. I think God is truly working in our lives where there's a lot of great things happening. And I think there's been a lot of good things, moving, graduation, marriage, our baby that she's pregnant with right now. Those things I think are great blessings that God has provided. But although there's a lot of great blessings, sometimes there's a lot of hardship and challenges that God has in front of our lives. So that going said, I'm just enjoying my professional career right now. Outside of work, I enjoy playing video games and playing sports. So if anyone wants to do anything, just hit me up. I'm more down and happy to do that. But I think as Pastor Daniel tasked me with this opportunity to speak in front of you all today, I didn't know if I'd be able to find the right words and what I could say to just tell you guys about my experience. I struggled trying to write words on paper and trying to find the right things to say, but all the time I just prayed about it and I just said, God, help me say what I want to say to this group of people. What can I say that's going to be honest and true to you, and what wisdom and knowledge I can give to everybody else? So as I progress through this class, it will draw me closer. So as I reflect on my decision to take Transforming Life Bible Study, I realize how deeply impactful this journey has been for me. I chose this class because I was in need for spiritual renewal and wanted to make a change in my life. Mentally and physically, I was struggling, and my relationship with my wife was not doing the best as well. I chose a lot of bad habits that were causing me to distance myself from the world, distance myself from people, and not just connect to people at a deeper level, which I will talk about in just a little bit. One of the biggest challenges I was facing was a lot of drinking habits. I was an alcoholic, and I just was struggling mentally, and I just couldn't overcome it. I just didn't know what I could do to kind of figure out why I was in such a dark hole and dark place. I didn't know how to cope with the realities around me, the stress, and all the things that I could do other than in difficult times seeing God's work in my life. I had lost control of everything I knew, and I needed to grow deeper in my faith. I chose Transforming Life because I believed it would help me rebuild my life and refocus on God and my relationship with Christ. It was a turning point, a chance to develop habits that would draw me closer to Christ. I knew that my choices were hurting the ones that I loved, and I needed to make a change. Transforming Life felt like the right next step to realign my heart with God and understand that the greater purpose behind everything. Through this study, I learned valuable spiritual disciplines that you learn the entire time throughout the class. There's 12 of them specifically. I won't go in depth of all 12. You guys can take the class and you guys can go through that. But they're all really great. And all the opportunities that you have to do each day just to kind of realign yourself with Christ. I'll just talk about it. We focused on prayer, worship, fasting, study, meditation, submission, celebration, and I might be missing a few in there, but each discipline challenged me in different ways. You learn to rely on Christ in different ways and how earthly desires and worldly desires that lay in front of you really impact your decision-making and where you are with Christ. Some areas I excelled, while other areas revealed where I still have room to grow. One of the most significant areas of growth for me was in my prayer life. So a little background story, I grew up Catholic. I was raised Catholic until 8th grade. I grew up and I would go to church frequently with my parents, but I didn't understand the purpose of where I was going. I just followed along with what my parents wanted me to do and what I thought was right. But when I got older, I kind of distanced myself to the church due to some really bad habits as well. A lot of bad things in college that I won't go too in depth with, but I think this is where my drinking habits started to become really a true big issue, and that's progressed for me for the next 10 years of my life, where I just felt like I would avoid reality with drinking. But growing up in a Catholic household, I didn't know how to pray right. There was only a few prayers where I would do the Lord's Prayer or Hail Mary, and then that was what I knew of prayer. But when I came to Christian church and growing up in growing my faith of this year, when I was baptized, I think in May of 15th, I was baptized this year. But I didn't know how to pray correctly. I didn't know where to find the right words, what I was saying right, where I could say right things, what God wanted me to even say or do. So one of the most significant areas was prayer. Before this class, my prayers often considered centering around God, asking for things, either promises or bargains, like, if you do this, I'll do this. Or it was a cycle of worldly desires, not truly understanding the depth of what it means to pray. Through the class, I usually never prayed longer than 2 minutes, to be fully honest with you. Like, I struggled. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was in a never-ending cycle of, oh, it's saying the same exact thing, so I would cut my prayer off short. But one day, Pastor Daniel challenged us to sit in the sanctuary and pray for 30 minutes, and that was a tall task for me, but it was really eye-opening for me because I saw myself sitting there, and I actually prayed the full entire time. I really just thought about everything. I aligned myself and prayed for so many different things, and then that's when I realized prayer is just not about praying for myself. Prayer is about praying for those around you that you care about. Pray for those who you love. Pray for those that you don't even know. Pray for those things that God wants you to pray for where you don't, it doesn't have an impact on you. That's what prayer is. Prayer doesn't just center on yourself. Prayer centers about focusing on God and understanding that trusting God will do the best for you. Through transforming life, I learned that prayer isn't about asking for the material things, but about acknowledging God's greatness, seeking his will, and praying for others. This shifts perspective how I approach my conversations with God. In James 4, 2-3, you desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly, to spend it on your passions. So when we pray, we have to be better about just understanding that we're praying for more than just ourselves. We should be praying for other things, and I think through transforming life, I truly understood this topic, and it really impacted me. Another area that I struggled with was submission. Submission was an area that challenged me deeply. As someone who struggles with pride and control issues, for those who don't know me, I'm actually truly an introvert, but I try to control every situation around me. It was difficult to let go and trust others. I realized that true humility comes from serving others without expecting anything in return. Jesus modeled this perfectly, serving us out of love, not obligation. He was a servant to us. That was a big thing that Pastor Daniel and we talked about in Transforming Life is Jesus was a servant, not someone who serves. He was a servant. He looked to serve others willingly and unconditionally. The lesson of servanthood impacted me profoundly, helping me see that serving others is about reflecting God's love and not seeking recognition or reward. Live a Christ-like life, which ultimately means to live like Jesus, trust and respect the Word of God, lay down all our burdens in front of him and need to get out of the way to trust that God knows our purpose. In Job 22, 21-22, agree with God and be at peace. Thereby good will come to you. Receive instruction from his mouth and lay upon his word in your heart. This is another area that I reflected on truly because I have control issues. For me, this is something that I'm still trying to work on, and it'll be down to my spiritual assignment as well. But I really wanted to focus on that because I don't lay my burdens in front of Christ and in front of God. I just try to do things on my own, and I try to will everything on my own, and that's not how it is. Another area that I would talk about, one more area, and then I'll get going to the spiritual assignment. Service, this was an area where I felt confident in. It's different from submission. Service is more so doing acts. But I also recognized that I was only serving on my own terms. I had to learn to serve more willingly with an open heart and to commit to doing it faithfully. For me, I just did it because I wanted a reward. I just wanted to be like, oh, I'm doing this for you to get something back out of it. And I realized that that really hurt my relationship with a lot of loved ones around me because I was expecting things from other people. I wasn't getting I wasn't getting things, and then I would get mad at them for not getting things, and I'd be like, hey, I did this for you, why didn't you do this? And that's not where my heart should have been, and not just fitted into my schedule. So I now understand that true service comes from a heart that desires to give and love, just as Christ did. Through the Transforming Life Bible Study, I've drawn closer to God, have seen significant growth in my spiritual life, I no longer feel as distant from him as I once did. I think Nathan talks about it at house church on a few different occasions where sometimes God is right next to you, or he's within a few meters, or he's farther than this, or he's at the end of the room, he's 10 meters away. Before, I felt like God was miles away from me. I didn't have sight on him, and I was lost, and I didn't know where to be. But now I feel like God is at least closer to me. He's at least in this room next to me, standing next to me, and giving me encouragement to stand up here and speak to you all right now. I remember I have drawn closer to God. I've seen significant growth in my. I have no longer feel as distant from it. I did. Sorry. I just lost where I was. Let's see. I remember a recent sermon where the speaker talked the importance of daily seeking God. I think this happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago where we had a guest speaker come in, and I was just reflecting on it. And they were talking about how we regularly attend church on Sundays and we go to house church on Fridays, but what else are we doing during the week? How are we chasing God during the week? This is kind of where I reflected on, and this goes into my Transforming Life study, is how am I choosing to chase God throughout the week? I am learning that my relationship with God is not about what I say, but what I do. It's about being faithful, committed, and obedient to him. I know that God desires to see me live out my faith through the actions and not just words. This is a lesson I'll continue to carry with me, and I'm excited to keep growing in my relationship with Christ. This journey has been a beautiful reminder that spiritual growth takes time, patience, and commitment, but with God's guidance, anything is possible. I am grateful for the transformation that already begun, and I trust that God will continue to lead me on the path of faith. I'm hopeful, encouraged, and excited about what lies ahead of me. For my spiritual assignment, I did talk about it a little bit, is what my spiritual assignment that I was tasked with giving up was drinking for me. So what I decided to do was go with sobriety. For me, that was alcohol. Over the years, drinking had become a significant impact on my decision-making, relationships, and overall well-being. It went beyond just social occasions where it was a drink every week, and became a way for me to escape reality and manage the stress in my life. This unhealthy reliance on alcohol affected my relationship with my friends, family, and it was destroying my relationship with my wife. We recently got married this year in March, and you think that we would still be in the honeymoon period of beauty and just enjoying each other's presence, but drinking really overcame that, and it just destroyed a lot of that early relationship that we had. I'll talk about it here in a sec, not to get too dark, but it was a really dark time for me. We were fighting all the time because I couldn't stop drinking. I would lie to her about not drinking. I would drink in the dark by myself and then come back home and find out that I was drunk, but I was trying to tell her that I wasn't drunk, but I was really hurting her then. I knew it was a problem, but I didn't know how to fix it. I tried. I think the one blessing that we had was coming this year before I took my MPT exam. I was drinking a lot before it, but Pastor Daniel had a sermon about stumbling others. So it was 2 weeks before I took my exam, I believe, or it was a week after I took my exam, maybe one of the two. But basically it talked about what are we doing, and it was focused on drinking, and if it's stumbling others, if you're going to drink with your house church members or drink around people, and then there's ultimately actions that come from that. And then I started to realize that my drinking habits were having actions. I was hurting a lot of the friends around me who cared about me, and most importantly, I was hurting my wife. The sad time was that I knew drinking became truly an issue was this year when I was drinking unconditionally. I was having more. So when it came to drinking, it wasn't just one drink and then stop. It was 5, 6, 7, 8 till I pass out, and then that's kind of how bad the drinking was. I didn't have control over it, and it was causing a really bad reliance on it in my life where I had to escape reality. I think I've been blessed to have Transforming Life and the people around me of Sean and Alex, who were my prayer partners throughout this journey, who could really share some insightful knowledge and truly finding the root to why alcohol was my true issue. During this dark time, there was 2 different times when I had been drinking and I fought with my wife about it, and all I could think about was wanting to take my own life. It was at the point where I just couldn't fathom reality anymore. I was drinking, and all I wanted to do was get in the car and just drive away and just hope that whatever happens to me. I couldn't find a way through all this hurt. I just knew I was hurting so many people around me, and I couldn't find a light at the end of the tunnel. It was just like the world was caving in on me. There was this deep hole that was just surrounding me, and I just didn't know how to get through it. And it just was a very, very dark time for me. But then I look back at Pastor Daniel's sermon on stumbling others, and I think that was God's way of just telling me, and God's point to me being like, hey, come back to me. I think there's a lot of different times in our life when God tries to send us a message and be like, hey, I'm here for you, just try. But I always turn my back on that. I didn't know how to get through that. And I feel like God's blessings, and God's always there. He wants us to be there. I just didn't know how to find him. So then I did, after the Stumbling Others sermon, I actually tried to do sobriety for a few weeks. I was able to sober for 4 weeks, and then I stumbled again, where I relapsed at a bachelor party where I started drinking again. And then at that moment, I was reflecting as I was waiting for my plane waiting. I just didn't know where I was and what I was doing. I just didn't, alcohol was at a point where it was taking over my life, and it just wasn't any more that I could do. God in my life and changed and fixed and provided me healing that all I could think of alcohol and how it changed me and my relationship with those around me. The day I decided to give up alcohol, I managed to stay sober. I convinced that this destructive cycle was really impacting me, and then transforming life came around the corner. I saw this as a great opportunity as we were tasked with an assignment of giving up something that really had an impact in your life. It was either habits, burdens, other things, and my biggest thing that I wanted to give up was sobriety, or was alcohol, so I could be, not the sobriety, but I wanted to give up alcohol because I knew it was something that was destroying my relationship with God and relationship with those around me who cared and support me. So I used this opportunity, and then I wanted to overcome this challenge. My need to control everything was preventing me from fully surrendering to God's plan. I gained a supportive community around me and the strength to learn God's doing during difficult times. I understood the struggle was just about alcohol, but it was trusting God with every part of my life. Today, I am 4 months sober, standing in front of you, and I'm committed to continuing this journey longer. Thank you. So as I say sober, it has deepened my faith and accountability. I plan to stay connected to God, dive deeper into his word, and continue to grow in my relationship with him. As I made progress with my spiritual assignment throughout, Pastor Daniel saw it as a moment that I was just doing too well with the sobriety thing, and it wasn't becoming an issue, although there was a lot of spiritual warfare that was happening, which we talked about in Transforming Life as well. Spiritual warfare presents itself when things are going well. It's a way to challenge you and see how deep your faith is. So during my sobriety journey, Jamie and I would fight a few times, and my first instinct when we fought was to drink, or when I had a tough day at work, I was to drink. But this kind of surpassed itself, and Pastor Daniel was like, hey, this is getting too easy for you. Let's choose something else for you now. So for me, I had to change my spiritual assignment midway through, so that was one of them. And my second one is take on a new challenge, which was accountability and being more proactive with my time. So that was something I really wanted to change because I found myself focusing on my own desires and not where I should focus my own attention. My goal was to plan better, complete tasks around the house, help my wife, assist coworkers, be more efficient without needing to control every aspect, help loved ones, help around the house, Jess and Josh, thank you. But I wanted to help and do things more for them than just my own desires. However, my biggest struggle remains trying to control every aspect still. This one, if we had to give rankings throughout the journey, I always gave myself a 10 out of 10 for the sobriety because I was achieving that one. But when it came to accountability and being proactive, I was probably like a 5 out of 10. So I'm still about 50% of the way there. We just ended class like a week ago, so this is still something that I'm still struggling with. I think as I still wrestle in trusting God's faith and letting go of what I need to control, this challenge has revealed to me that my relationship with Christ requires more than just trust. His plan and purpose for me is there. I just have to be able to set down my own will and desires and follow him faithfully. I've realized I need to focus on serving others and prioritizing their own needs over my own sometimes and being more altruistic. Through this journey, I've learned to spend more time in God's word, pray more intentionally, and grow in accountability. I've started to see the fruit of these efforts. I've noticed changes in my life and the attitude of those around me. I feel like I'm understanding deeper spiritual truths and experiencing God's work in my life is more tangible. I feel like I've grown deeper in my faith, and then that's the reason I'm standing up here today, is I've found myself a peace in my heart now, and I'm able to kind of just encourage myself to just trust God and his faith for me, and that's my testimony.